Welcome, everyone, to What the Force, and welcome to our segment, Calling on Kenobi, where we are covering the Obi-Wan Kenobi show. And today we are going to talk about Part 5. And with me to cover this show is Alex Kane. Welcome back, Alex.
Hey, thanks so much.
Just a reminder to like and subscribe to make sure to keep up with all of the What the Force episodes. It's handy. Yep. All right, let's dig into this episode. What did you think of it?
Well, I absolutely loved the opening with, we're back in Attack of the Clones time, and we've got the Obi-Wan mullet and the little Padawan, whatever you call it, the little baby ponytail and the braid, right?
Is like back pony with shaved head
back pony.
And like Padawan braid. Yeah.
Yeah. Congrats to these two gentlemen on not aging in 20 years. I'm not at all jealous. But yeah, I loved the sort of Coruscant backdrop. It's kind of like lo-fi, like they took an original digital matte painting from Attack of the Clones and threw some 4K grain over the top of it. I don't know if that's what they actually did, but to me it feels like a little piece of sort of George and John Knoll and all those other people who made the prequels. It's sort of like they just slipped that in there, and it's you instantly feel, oh, this is Attack of the Clones. Like, that's where we are. We're in 2002. There's sort of a nice, quiet confidence to that whole opening scene where the actors slip back into those, moments from 20 years ago. And even Hayden's voice, it sounds like his voice in Attack of the Clones. It's pretty remarkable, and I enjoyed that a lot. And, it's purposeful. They go into the character and...
I definitely feel like we're going to get Revenge of the Sith Anakin at some point in the next episode based on this. But the flashback is doing a lot of stuff. And I don't have any pre-show thoughts. I'm going to save those kind of throughout the show so we can dig right into this flashback. I really love flashbacks that mirror the conflict that they're in. Like they use it as almost like a frame story or like a way to contextualize what the two of them are facing in this moment. I feel like this is something people will come back to. But for me, this is in so many ways like a rosy retrospective memory. It's like almost idyllic Coruscant. There's no cars. It's not grungy and dirty like we see in the very film noir Attack of the Clones Coruscant. Wasn't that interesting?
Yeah, it's definitely, pre-Clone Wars. Yeah, it's very
but even in Phantom Menace,
blue. Yeah.
Still, right? Like there's always like a line of cars or like floating speeders that are like traveling Coruscant almost every hour of the day.
Yeah, it's like this clear blue sky that is the opposite of like the industrial sector where Palpatine sort of hides out in Attack of the Clones, where it's
this isn't truthfully Coruscant though. This is like a memory version, a rosy ideal of Coruscant, because like it's in Anakin's memory, and I'm sure that like Kenobi is also flashing back to that memory throughout the episode, but it starts from Anakin's head and he is looking back at this. And I would have thought that he would have looked back on his times with Obi-Wan with more fire and brimstone and like twisted, like things are sad or bad, but it actually looked like he looked on it with this like, sort of fuzzy vision of what was, right?
Yeah.
Or do you have any memories like that where you like, things were bad and like, or things were maybe not as idyllic as it is, but you've like glossed it over in your brain?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, it's very much like that kind of, like, oh, when my parents came to see, like something at school or what have you, like that, he kind of thought of Obi-Wan less of a brother and more as a father back at that point in his life, I think. I think he says in Attack of the Clones, like, you're like my father or something.
Yeah.
I think.
Because he's raised him since he was 9, right? And he's like 16, 17 at that point.
It's sort of like the wartime that makes them more like brothers, you could say, maybe. And back then it was more of a father-son type relationship where he was kind of scolding him and treating him like a little bit, like a student, like a child. But, he clearly so badly wants to impress and get that approval, that sort of father-son dynamic that, but yeah, it is, like you said, it is a memory. And of course, he's like staring into the like cool, perfect blue of hyperspace when he's thinking of this stuff. So that's kind of a nice contrast, or, like that idea that it's, the future and the past like bleeding into one another, like the illusion of time being an illusion, and it's just the human vessel that I don't know.
There's a few kind of interesting symbol things that are happening, right? So the floor reflects like a pool of water, not quite like a mirror, but like a pool of water. So it is a reflection, right? It is a reflection
where they're fighting.
On top of it. And they pan to directly over top of them as they start to fight. And there's these like circles that are like different size circles that are going into a smaller bit. So it's like, this is like, we're going into the heart of what is going on between these two characters.
When I saw somebody post a screenshot of the fight from the overhead, like bird's eye view, it looked like an eyeball to me. And I think if you overlaid that with the hyperspace stream, it would look, it would very much look like the iris of an eye. Like an iris, kind of.
It's the mind's eye, right?
Yeah, and the window to the soul and all that too.
Yeah. So we're talking about something like that's happening between these two, and I was beginning to think that you weren't coming, Master. Like he was late, right? This is very like, oh, Dad, I was thinking you weren't going to show up. And, oh, good. Maybe I stand more of a chance this time. So Obi-Wan has lost to Anakin, right? This is what this is saying, right? And Obi-Wan is like, I have to take a different approach. There's a really, really interesting conversation on Twitter that I really, really appreciated, which is Anakin doesn't get a lot of positive reinforcement. He gets a lot of stick, right? This really makes me think about like the carrot and stick metaphor, and how Palpatine really gives Anakin genuine affection, no matter what. Like it's twisted, but if it was just straight up affection the way it was, we would consider that to be unconditional love. And he's the only one that is giving him that like unconditional affection. Everything that Ben gives him is hard lessons to change him, and not understanding who he is and loving him for who he is. That's hard. That's hard to look at this situation. And yeah, you have to like, use a way to mold somebody so that they understand and they are given, a good understanding of the world and morals and things like that. And he's trying to teach him the Jedi teaching, which is, that you're really trying not to hurt others. You're only trying to help and defend. Really, that's what it is, right? You're not trying to get power. You're not trying to do these things. But the only one who's giving him sort of the poison in apple clothing, right? Like is Palpatine. He's giving him all of these nice things, this nice affection, but it's in a way to teach him that he should desire more, and his desires are worthwhile. It's really, really hard to be like, sometimes the way that you deliver a message is just as important as the message itself.
Yeah, I mean, there's this concept in churches and families of like sort of tough love, which is probably just a euphemism for like abuse. But certainly a lot of people have experienced that, where you just sort of, you do as the institution wants you to do, or else you're kind of like given the cold shoulder. Or,
and I'm not saying that Obi-Wan Kenobi was abusive. I'm not saying that.
No,
I'm just saying that he was very hard on Anakin, and you see that throughout their relationship, right? He was joking occasionally. He was, able to give him compliments when he felt like he deserved them, but it's just Anakin needed the unconditional love of his mother, and the only one that came close to that was Sheev Palpatine.
Yeah, I think Qui-Gon might have been that figure at one point, but then his journey's cut short. So Palpatine fills that role.
I mean, you hear Dave Filoni talk about that. That's the duel of the fates, right? Is who's going to raise Anakin, and it's Obi-Wan Kenobi, who was maybe not right up to the challenge at that point.
Yeah. Like Qui-Gon is sort of he's not perfect, but what he does have going for him is his willingness to like break the rules and say no to leadership when it calls for it. And Obi-Wan, great guy that he is, hero that he is, ultimately is like a yes, Master Yoda, how high would you like me to jump kind of guy. He's a yes man. Some things I noted in the duel were like the way that they were fighting, like their styles. Obi-Wan has like one relaxed hand on his saber. Anakin is like gripping it with like two tight fists, sort of like, showing the contrast of the confidence that these guys have. Obi-Wan is like so assured of his righteousness and his belonging and like all these things that Anakin is not. He doesn't belong in the Jedi in some way, or in the eyes of people like Mace Windu and maybe Yoda. He'll always be sort of that outsider who is, too old to train, who is reckless, is like a Skywalker basically. Obi-Wan basically says like, good, meaning like, because when he says like, oh, you came, like basically Obi-Wan comments on the fact that he's more patient than Anakin, and it's going to work in his favor. Yeah. It's that idea of like Anakin is always trying to prove himself, and Obi-Wan maybe wasn't trying to prove himself enough,
I don't know when I'm going to talk about this, but it is sort of a judo quality, or the concept of Wu Wei, which I've starting to talk about a little bit in the last two episodes, which with the Way of Water. And it is the idea of actionless action. There's a lot of other sort of meanings behind it, and you can kind of view it in a bunch of different ways, including being mindful until you need to take action, or letting the action come to you, right? Like, or not being too distracted by things and trying to make things happen like Anakin, but allowing things to happen like Obi-Wan. And like we've talked a lot about it with the Way of Water and how water flows. It doesn't directly, it doesn't beat the rock and take the high ground and run up the hill and win, right? It slowly wears away at the rock and it flows, and that is very Wu Wei. So I'm going to be getting into that kind of with how Obi-Wan is acting, and this is like, it's inconsistent with how he behaves on Mustafar, right? Because he seeks the high ground. He doesn't go down low with Anakin and is not with him, right? In the darkness and in the dirt. But we see that in this flashback, Obi-Wan is closer to the concept of the way of water or Wu Wei from a Zen perspective than Anakin is. Anakin is very force everything to happen. And this is a very simple way to view the two sides of the force, or how people within the light side of the force treat the force, which is the force is the ally, the force makes up everything, and the force is the ally, right? So you flow with the force. The force is a flow, Wu Wei, the way of water, versus sort of the dark side, which is through my own will, I am more powerful than the universe. The universe will come and obey me, right? That is like two, and they present those two in this fight in the memory.
I haven't seen Attack of the Clones for about a year, but there's this part that sort of exemplifies this, where Anakin says, "We will find out who's trying to kill you, Padme, I promise." And Obi-Wan's like, "We will not exceed our mandate." He's like, chill out, dude. Like, yeah, what happens. And, Anakin wants to hunt, which is a big theme in Obi-Wan Kenobi, the series. They talk about hunting in like many of the episodes, especially if they have like Inquisitors. Even
in this episode.
Yeah, exactly. Up. Yeah, exactly. It's you by starting the Clone Wars, Palpatine turned the Jedi from sort of Patrick Swayze in Roadhouse, be nice until it's not time to not be nice, and then and turned them into soldiers. Yeah.
And sort of the opposite of what the order was founded on and what they intend to be. The war needfully makes them into people who are now trying to take the high ground, trying to gain advantage, trying to do the things that their own order and their way of looking at the Force definitely makes them more susceptible to, dark side thoughts and feelings and things like that, right?
Almost like machines, almost like the clones, Obi-Wan, we see him like hunt down and kill General Grievous, and then basically he's told to do the same with Anakin, his brother, and he pretty much does that. And Obi-Wan in episode 2 would not have been like, yeah, sure, I'll just go hunt and kill some people. It's a very different Jedi Order after those few years.
Yeah. And there's a lot of, and that's kind of a theme for this whole episode. So I didn't say I was going to do a pre-show thought, but this is kind of a pre-show thought because we're about to get into the rest of it, right? Which is there's a deprogramming that is happening of Obi-Wan Kenobi. He is putting away past things, and in a hero's journey perspective, this would be considered to be atonement with the Father, right? So he is putting away things that he needed to put away. And there's a bunch of that psychological symbolism, as well as Anakin is confronting the confrontation with the person he viewed to be like a father to him. That's where we're at, which is really fascinating that we got here. So the next thing that happens, of course, after we see, Vader looking out into hyperspace, we see that Reva is coming aboard. The plan worked perfectly. They're arriving at Jabim, and he knights her, or he gives her the Grand Inquisitor title, and she kneels. One thing that this made me think of is I really want like medieval Star Wars.
Yeah.
I want more knights, like actually knights, And I know that we have the High Republic, but I want like older than that, where like armor is like standard and like the Jedi wizards, are fighting the Mandalorians. Like, I want that.
Yeah. I remember the first time Knights of the Old Republic was like announced, and I sort of stumbled on some blog, about that game before I saw like actual screenshots of it. And that's exactly what I was picturing when I was like reading my, first impression of it was like, and then of course you see droids and lightsabers, and it's like, oh, okay. But the first thought was like, oh, it's going to be medieval, and they could always go there for sure.
Yep. Just there's a lot of breadcrumbs, them talking about the past in Clone Wars season 7, and how the armor speaks in The Mandalorian, references to ancient stuff throughout the saga and throughout the other properties or other mediums. I want it so bad. I want it to be live action movies. I want it to be so cool. I want give me my epic space fantasy where it actually has a lot of why are people called dukes and counts and things like that in Star Wars without there actually being fealty and regency and things, right?
Yeah, like Count Dooku's culture, like in that comic that Jody Hauser wrote a Count Dooku comic, and then of course we got the novel from Cavan too. And
Dooku,
it's like
Jedi Lost,
his planet really, like the culture around Dooku really implies this very like ancient, sort of European fantasy type thing.
Alderaan still exists. Too. Like there's princesses and there's like these star systems didn't used to be part of the Republic. The Republic is kind of a newer concept. I like the idea of like make the Italian city-state system that you get like in Shakespearean times or what Shakespeare wrote about, Venice and Verona. This was the Italian city-state system where you have that, but like on a galactic scale. I think it would be really cool. Anyways, that was a little diversion. We're back on Shabim. The rescuing heroes returning from Fortress Inquisitorius come back, and Kenobi is quickly realizing, hey, he meets Kaja. Kaja's there. Like everybody else is there that he has met along his journey, and he realizes through a quick conversation with his with Broken, who's been helping him, that he also must help. And this is like a complete 180 from where he was at the start of the show. Really interesting. And so he offers his help, of course. This leads into, of course, Lola preventing everyone from leaving by flying into the vents, right? And this is like a really solid metaphor for being emotionally stuck where you are.
I was going to bring that up. The restraining bolt is such a fun metaphor in this episode. Like the idea that the dark side is really just, or, selfish, destructive feelings. It's just this like little, lock you put on yourself and you just get trapped.
Yeah. There's way more with how Leia like resolves this droid metaphor, but effectively there is this thing that has been corrupted by Palpatine, right? Or the Empire, that is buried deep inside of Obi-Wan Kenobi, that he cannot continue on his journey until he kind of can let it go.
It's like that Something in the Way song that from Nirvana that's used in the Batman so like relentlessly. It's sort of like until he can get over himself, he's not really doing Gotham any material good, but then once he's like, oh, all these people need me to like, get out there and do something that's actually like, cleaning things up, then we might get somewhere.
And he's reminded again of the Jedi writing on the wall. And apparently it's quite interesting when you translate all the different names. And, one of the names is like of the name of one of the little kids like in the room. Okay. Like he wrote his name straight up on the wall.
This is a different wall, right, than we saw before?
Yeah. This is like
same idea.
Yeah, this is the path though, and people are like communicating into the wall, right? There's there's sort of like a psychological feeling of the words that have made an impression on you and you're carrying them with you. Like carving them into yourself, right? It's the advice that has stuck with you all of these years, and that's the one line that he reads out loud is, "The light may fade, but is not forgotten." What does that say to you?
It's not forgotten. Well, the thing that keeps coming to mind is how Tala reinforces this with her little holster that she keeps her blaster in. She's like carved the tally marks, and I believe that's for every Jedi that she's escorted to safety or something.
Yeah.
Or
it is.
I think that's what it was. But yeah, this idea that if you, with your actions, if you save one life or you save two lives, like you've done good, that's like a net positive, right? And so I think, karmically, socially, when you put good out into the world, like you're gonna, like I think you've said this in the podcast before, just like love generates more love or something like that.
Love generates love. Well, and also it's a big fundamental part about Star Wars is that you can never destroy the light completely, and you can never destroy the dark completely.
Yeah. I think Matthew Stover's Revenge of the Sith novel has a good little epilogue about that. Basically, like the dark always wins, but the candle of love is enough to hold it back and ignite the stars and all that. So yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Matthew Stover, classic. Everyone should read the Revenge of the Sith novel.
So good. Yeah,
it is like that, right? And it's also, we take the good memories with us, and even if we're in the dark, we're not alone, right? If we've seen the light at some point. This cuts to Obi-Wan realizing that Vader's going to attack because the ships are coming, and we get flashback to which is more fighting, of course. I remember their fighting styles, and there's literally moves that mirror how they fight in their final fight on Mustafar. There's like throughout the fight, they use some of the moves. So it looks like they really paid attention to that duel to choreograph it. And a Jedi's goal is to defend life, not to take it. And the reply is, mercy doesn't defeat an enemy.
Yeah, I don't know. I wrote down some of the things that they say to each other, but not super specific, I guess.
Yeah.
I
wanted to talk about this line, just a tiny amount, which is that mercy does defeat enemies.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like killing them with kindness idea, right?
Yeah. Like the best thing that you can do to somebody who is your enemy is have compassion for them, right? Because you're not gonna just like, you can't destroy the darkness, right? You can only understand it.
yeah. Only they can eat their own shadow, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And we should have like mercy for those that, like, this is all leading us to this path of where Obi-Wan Kenobi, the man who killed his master on Naboo, he holds with mercy and pity in his arms as he dies, i.e. Maul.
Yeah.
This is all leading us to that concept, which is ultimate mercy for your enemies. And I don't think that Obi-Wan Kenobi would have killed Maul if he wasn't a threat to Luke in that moment.
Yeah. I have a paragraph in my notes. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just saying, that I thought that Reva, it like acts as an anti-Maul sort of figure in this episode, where she sort of goes through the same overarching, journey that Maul does, essentially. And then in the end, we get the sense that she might go a different way, but it's sort of like a mini Maul arc for her in this episode. I thought that was fun.
Yeah. Like through what he goes through with the other shows and everything like that?
Yeah, like across, like, how he sort of dies in the desert, but he, and then her taking on Vader, I sort of thought of Maul and his brother Savage taking on Palpatine.
Like trying to turn against Vader, or how they try to turn against Palpatine, and what happened to Maul, which was sort of being brought in and trained, and like always kind of realizing that they needed to go after him. Yeah,
and starting by like, okay, I'm an apprentice to this person who ostensibly cares about me, and like I'm ambitious, and they're gonna help me get to I'm gonna be the second Sith Sith Lord in the galaxy, and really Maul is just a pawn, really Reva is just a pawn, and so because like similar to the mining metaphor that we covered, like the dark side is consumption. It uses these things. It uses people up. It uses up the galaxy. It uses, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. It doesn't create. It doesn't give. It doesn't make more. It uses. It traps. It uses. And all dark side users are stuck in that maze of pain. So Reva being like Maul totally makes sense. I also see Reva similarly, as we've been talking about this whole time, as we've been episode to episode talking, a lot like Anakin, right? And it's a lot like the part of Anakin is out there archetypically. Like Anakin has projected this shadow out there in the world by when he made Reva kind of revenge, right, on him. He's given this shadow form to fight himself inside of the system. Who amongst Anakin and Obi-Wan wants Anakin dead more than Anakin? Anakin, right? And sure.
Reva, he put Reva on this path to come after him. It's like he's out there. Reva is hunting Anakin, just like how Anakin used to behave. This is the Jedi part of himself that still exists. Like the part of him that hated the fact that he had to kill where he grew up. It's out there, right? We do this to ourselves. We project our shadows out there on people, and then we treat them badly because they remind us of something that we haven't dealt with in our unconscious.
I don't know if this is quite the same thing, but I have in my mind this idea that the Sith code is kind of embodied by Anakin, or by Vader rather. This idea that like egoism, like I do that which helps me, myself, and I only. Like, and when we meet Anakin as a 9-year-old boy or a 10-year-old boy, he's the opposite of that. He is like altruistic. He's like the path. He's like Tala. He's like, Mom, you say the biggest problem in this universe is nobody helps anybody, that kind of thing. And he knows only love. Yeah. And it's, I think that's maybe what Vader is trying to reconcile, like that, the little boy who would do anything to help a stranger versus Vader who would burn down a planet to get revenge on one man, or to bring back his wife, or that's the dissonance, I think, that kind of defines that character.
Yeah, and he's still kind of a Padawan. He's still a Padawan that gets brought up, right?
Yeah, the fact that in A New Hope he says, "I was but the learner, now I am the master," just by saying that implies that he's not secure in that idea.
No. Right? No, and we'll get to it down the road, like down this episode, but Obi-Wan reminds him of that, by the end of this, right?
Sure.
Yeah. We get the Kenobi speech where, he talks about we don't need to fight them. We defend together, and then we can all leave together, right? This really makes me really warm and fuzzy, because the idea that there is something more important than winning is repeated, right? So what does winning look like to you is a really important question. right? So what does victory mean? And it doesn't need to be, two sides of a conflict and they both need to win, right? There can be a third path or a fourth path. It can be something that is not binary, winning or losing.
Yeah.
Right. And he says, we're not even going to compete. This is the third way concept, right?
Yeah. I feel like this gets at that idea, and I'm sure we'll go into this more later, but like the people were kind of annoyed with Luke not physically going to Crate and fighting Kylo and being a badass.
Yeah, it's very TLJ. It feels TLJ in its DNA, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, the whole episode for sure. But yeah, especially this idea that, not just defeating your enemy, but like that's not, the point or whatever.
Yeah. It's how we win. It's what we're fighting for, right? What Rose says, not, it's not hating things. It's saving what we love, right? That is the entire concept of this episode. And it's entirely to flow with where they can go, right? It's not about striking hard directly against a barrier that they know they can't win against, just for the sake of winning. That's not where it's coming from. Reva lands and starts the attack, and we realize, we need to get into the vents to fix this because they haven't been able to open up the doors, right? Which is a solid metaphor for this whole cave is basically Obi-Wan Kenobi. I'm just going to throw it out there.
Oh, okay.
This is his psychology. We were inside of Anakin's psychology previously. We're now in Obi-Wan Kenobi's brain, and psychology is unconscious, right? We're underground. That's always a big sign that we're in a psychological scenario. We're in tunnels, which is a good symbol to say that we're about to come to the other side of a tunnel and experience a rebirth. It's a rebirth symbol, but also a change and transformation, right? So that's always kind of like the tunnel vibe that you're getting. So they're in these tunnels, and there's this large kind of open area that they're trying to get open. This is the big challenge of the episode psychologically. We're trying to get Obi-Wan to get past this point that he is stuck on. What do you think he's stuck on?
Oh gosh, I mean, probably just the idea that there's more to the galaxy than these two guys. I think that's the idea that they're both stuck on at this moment in this 6-episode story is, and Reva too. Like Reva's kind of going through the exact same thing. This idea that, the galaxy is Vader and Kenobi.
There's a metaphor in the episode that is symbolically used. So there is a corrupted droid,
right,
that has blocked his progression. Progression is, means transformation, going further along on the path. The path, they can't lead the path. They're literally putting it in the script, right? They're spelling it out for us. They can't go on the path. Obi-Wan cannot go on the next stage of his journey or his path as a person who's trying to improve and become better and understand the world, because deep within the bowels of him, deep within the vents, deep inside of him that only a small little girl can fit is a corrupted thing that has been corrupted by essentially Palpatine, the Empire. It's Anakin who's broken inside of him. This small little version of Anakin is broken inside of him, and it's stopping him from growing. It's like how sometimes our trauma or the things that we haven't dealt with is stuck inside of you. And so this is all the idea that sometimes there's more important things. Sometimes you have to work through these things. Understanding that you can't kill Anakin is a big thing in this episode, right? And so it's really wonderful, the whole metaphor. in the episode.
There's this scene. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. And then, we get the sort of start of this resolution with Leia, saying, well, the internal workings, like we could get at those if they were in the vent, but I can't fit in there. Well, who can fit in there? Oh, Leia, I'm going to need a ladder. You trust me, I trust her. So it's like this idea of the piece of Anakin that has healed Obi-Wan, or is starting to heal Obi-Wan, can come back around, right? So Leia, as a surrogate for Anakin, can heal Obi-Wan.
Yeah, legacy, past and future.
Yeah.
There's this scene in the new Jurassic Park movie.
Getting away from generational trauma, right?
Yeah. There's this scene in the new Jurassic Park movie that I saw last night, and it's got Laura Dern in it and Colin Trevorrow. So this scene just screamed Star Wars to me. And Bryce Dallas Howard it's Bryce Dallas Howard and Laura Dern in this dark, very red room, and the dialogue is absolutely Colin Trevorrow meditating on his Star Wars failure, right? And one of them says, like, I've made a lot of mistakes. I think that's Bryce Dallas Howard. And then Laura Dern says, like, it doesn't matter, who you were or what you did. It's where we're going next. That's what's important. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the idea here through Leia being the sort of, the future, sort of elephant in the room kind of, she,
hope. Yeah.
Yeah. She's the second chance for Obi-Wan and for the Jedi Order, for the galaxy, for the Republic, I guess is the appropriate thing to say.
And this is so important, but he has faith in something again, even if she's just tiny.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if she's just tiny. So Leia gets up there and he asks Kaja to watch her, which was really convenient that he was there. He's like, I don't babysit. It's like, yeah. But then he sees the beep on his little comm and hears the message from Bail.
Yeah.
And that he hasn't heard from him. And so his immediate reaction is, you've been compromised. I'm going to go and help Owen with Luke.
Yeah, he says, he's like, I know I said I told you not to call, but I'm getting worried or something to that effect. And so you get the sense that he's going to Tatooine now because he's just sort of getting antsy. He's lost a little bit of trust or faith. He thinks Obi-Wan's maybe failed.
Yeah. And so he knows that although Leia was his primary responsibility, he's actually responsible for both children, which was kind of nice to hear. I don't know. That was kind of nice to hear. Wasn't it nice to hear? I don't know.
It's kind of like him learning the lesson that he was trying to impress on Obi-Wan at the start of the series, right?
Yeah.
It's like they matter equally, the two twins.
Living up to what he was trying to say.
Yeah.
Obi-Wan and
walking
say,
the walk.
He walks the walk. Good on you, Bail. You're awesome. Right? You're like, I'm not just here for Leia. I'm here for both of them. I will help both of them.
Such a great character.
It's so good. Like, I'm so happy we get more of him in Andor. Like,
yes.
Like, peak awesome, right? And we get more Jimmy Smits. Like, how can we go wrong? And Tala is like, obviously sees Obi-Wan upset, and talks about kind of her sort of backstory in more details. And it's not like she's kind of been doling out the pieces of her backstory throughout the series since we've seen her right in the third episode. And like, she's been actively atoning for what happened, even though like she's following orders, right? She was told one thing and another thing happened, and people that she probably wanted to protect died. And like, you can't go back in the past. You can just fight to make things better. Wow. This statement, the notches on her belt being a tip, like a reversal of typical kills. This is, I saved people. That was so powerful. Like we talked about it at the top of the episode. So powerful. And like the idea that we see this like living atonement from somebody who, you know, like any officer from the Empire who's done the wrong thing and it became too much, ended up making the decision to like help or join the rebellion or do something different. And her way of helping is probably one of the more admirable ways, even compared to the rebellion. Right? She's literally helping children and families. Like that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of echoes of like Rogue One and the sequel trilogy sort of being compressed into Tala, into, you know, Reva, without jumping ahead too much potentially, or jumping to conclusions. But it's like, you know, we like didn't get to see like, you know, Ben Solo having to deal with that messiness yet of, you know, okay, like I'm good now. I'm a new man. You know, what does that look like? And we sort of get like, oh, you know, a sense of that with Tala, and then we also get Reva maybe, you know, potentially as what, you know, someone who could be a vessel for that. Like, what does that look like? You know, we see a little bit of that in Rogue One, but those people, you know, they don't go on for very long. You know, they sort of
let's just put a pin in that. Pin in that, right? So Reva has been like trying to get into the tunnels. She's you know, she's not going to let Obi-Wan Kenobi forget that she's there with the constant battering at the door, knocking at the door. And he approaches and she's like, if this is just you buying for time, it won't work. They have a lovely conversation about, you know, what did you know and when did you know it, Reva? Where are you from? And you get this unveiling, this and Moses Ingram is just brilliant as an actress. Yeah, like you see it on her face. You see the layer that she has to keep in, and then you see the layer come out with this conversation, and you're acting to a wall. What the hell?
Yeah, this is the episode so far where she really shines and just like impresses with this bit. You know, you can like the conflict is always on her face in these episodes, you know, kind of like when Kylo's getting like lectured by Snoke and you're like, ooh, you know, he's going through it. You know, she's definitely doing a lot of acting with her face in this episode where, you know, Obi-Wan is getting through to her and it's really powerful. But yeah, I enjoyed the conversation a lot where you know, like you could sort of hit pause on this war zone and basically have this like intimate little conversation between these two fallen, you know, these two people who are wounded by Anakin Skywalker in different ways. You know, they're two examples of Anakin's sort of baggage and his the things that he has created in a way, right? Like Obi-Wan by this point is super closed off to the potential of love and the potential of kindness and helping others, right? And he's slowly trying to work his way out of that by helping others. And Leia has sort of helped him get to a point. But Reva really calls it out to say, like, can you really bury Anakin the way that you think you can? You can't, because you don't want him dead. Right? Do you really want Anakin dead? Whew, it's hard. Yeah, because he's his family, so it's and it's this sort of you know, he's a victim of Palpatine, just like the rest of the galaxy. So you have, I don't know, you have this good monologue from Reva that's sort of you know, it's similar to Anakin telling Padme kind of what he did to the Tuscans. You know, it's sort of like you know, I am alone, you know, I'm hurting, and so I hurt others, you know. You know, but it's reverse of that, which is like he has done all of these terrible things and you cannot still hate him enough to want to kill him. Yeah, that too. Yeah. So it's it's really fascinating, this whole thing, and like how it's like through a doorway, right? Doorways
being really important for transformation, a gateway,
Yeah.
right? A gateway on his journey, right? Really, really important. We see a lot of like more tunnel metaphors throughout this as she breaches the walls, right? So sometimes change is hard and you end up having it forced upon you. And so that's sort of what's going on with this metaphor, that like she's going to get in, she's going to, you know, kind of drag him over the coals just like Vader did, right? She's going to do this because she is functioning as Anakin, right? The piece of him that is still like in Vader that doesn't want him to succeed, but he's still going to play along with whatever is going on. And that leads to the shootout that happens in the tunnels, right? And to what happens to Tala and Nedby. I have a lot of thoughts about the symbolism and some really cool stuff, which I do want to bring up. But first, like in general, the reaction to Tala's death and why it may have upset some people, I think is really important to talk about. It upset me. It didn't sit right with me, her death and her heroic suicide, right?
Yeah.
That happened.
It's a bummer.
How did you feel about it before we get into this? Because I'm not trying to bum anybody out who really thought that the scene worked for them, but I definitely understand why it didn't work for many people that I knew, as well as why it stuck weird with me.
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of I had sort of prepared myself for her to die for just sort of logistical reasons, like Obi-Wan, like living alone, you know, in the middle of a desert by himself. But, you know, I remember seeing I Am Legend with Will Smith in the theater back when that movie came out. And it sort of ends like this with him, you know, all these vampire zombie things are sort of closing in and he like blows himself up with explosives, and it's like supposed to be this like heroic ending, and it didn't feel that way at all. It felt gross, and I left that movie feeling really hollow and never wanting to watch it again. And I think that what might make sense in like if it was like some, you know, gritty Saving Private Ryan type of movie, you know, the things that work are a little bit different than, you know, a George Lucas's hopeful fairy tale. You know, so I see that argument of it doesn't feel right, you know. I think that in this case, I'm on the fence about it. But yeah, it's a bummer to see a character who went through so much and did the right thing and continued to do the right thing. And, you know, she says that was never who I was. You know, she was never in, you know, her heart was never in the idea of the Empire. She was just doing what she had to do to, you know, survive and help people. And so to just kind of see her and her droid go down in a blaze, you know, I don't know. It's almost like if Finn had actually crashed into the Death Star cannon thing in The Last Jedi and like Rose hadn't stopped him, you know, it would have felt like that. It would have felt really gross and unsatisfying. And you know, maybe that's the point. We're
supposed to cheer that, are we? Are we supposed to cheer that? I don't know. It's really kind of the difference between what is called the American monomyth, or how, you know, sacrificial death, sacrificial heroicism is considered to be a good thing, and it's this sort of very, very Americana culture of heroicism for this, you know, for death, and redemption means death. Very American monomyth. In the Joseph Campbell monomyth, it's a little bit different, right? Yes, you can sacrifice yourself for others, and that does happen, but it's really rare, like comparatively. If you're a hero on a path, and many people really started to jive with Tala, right?
Yeah,
like
same.
Like Inedra Varma even went into like kind of the psychology and how she really felt like she was in like her character, and they had talked about being a love interest, and that, you know, she's prepared to like totally do anything he needs to further his quest because she loves him. Right? Which, adds a whole nother layer to this. But for me, it strikes hollow for a few reasons. One is this happened to Val in Solo.
Oh, yeah. Same type of deal.
When that happened, the writer said it's because the actress, Sandy Newton, was too good that we felt this bad. No, I'm sorry. That's not why we feel this bad. That's a BS answer. Yeah. And some people just really quickly identify with a character that has done something wrong, maybe against their will, maybe not, has been trying their best to atone for it or make a new decision every single day, take a different step forward, but still ends up not being allowed to live because it's not enough.
Yeah.
It's not enough to have just decided and gone down the right path. It still ends in a death, a redemption by death. And that sits weirdly with a lot of people who resonate with the hero's journey and the elixir and bringing the elixir back to the community, right? It heals the hero. And if you're atoning, you're already on your way back to heal the community, right? You've gone really, really far on your journey. And she had something more to give the universe and the story. And it feels bad to effectively have killed another woman character in Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's another fridged woman. Unfortunately, a woman that had to die to further a man's plot.
Yeah.
And that's going to sit bad with all sorts of different types of people. All of those reasons.
Yeah.
All right. That was a very long rant. I'm sorry.
No. Yeah. I remember we were sort of DMing back and forth like, a week or two ago, and I said something like, God, I hope they don't fridge her. Like, that was the word I used too. It's like, I saw this coming, I think we all saw this coming, and it sucks.
There's like, oh, she had her reasons, and and Obi-Wan like screaming for her to not do this bugs me. It's like, oh, they knew what they were doing and they made this choice because they didn't want to have her have more story. That's the only reason you kind of do it from a story perspective, like heroic suicide needs to feel necessary and sufficient. And I don't feel like it really got to the necessary part. I guess he has a lightsaber. He's a cool Jedi. It feels like I have a lot of reasons why this maybe didn't sit well for a lot of people. I have a lot of reasons why this symbolically was really dope.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So let's go into that because I've done my rant, which is I don't know that this is the best decision. Anyways, symbolically, this is in the tunnel, the moment that Obi-Wan Kenobi, the archetypical part of himself, which we talked about at the start of the show, the Clone Wars, and like how this turned the Jedi into soldiers. This is the death of the soldier part of him, the thing that he has been ruminating on through Tala, which is like, I did bad things. I participated in the Clone Wars. I was a soldier and I caused the downfall of the Republic. This is the symbolic death of that broken piece of him. Tala's death is that death of him symbolically. The thing that he needed to put away.
Sure.
He needed to stop ruminating on what had happened in the Clone Wars and what had happened, And coolly, this is a progressive lesson that gets handed elixir-wise from Ned B protecting Tala and allowing himself to die to Tala protecting Obi-Wan, allowing herself to die, to Obi-Wan protecting Luke and Leia, allowing himself to die.
Yes.
To Luke protecting Rey and the Resistance, allowing himself to die.
Yeah. Yeah, this whole episode draws a line straight from like Attack of the Clones, or even before Attack of the Clones, all the way through the end of The Last Jedi's fourth act.
Yeah.
And it's very cool. It's quite the trick that they pulled off.
Yeah, like, and it's because they understand the psychology.
Yeah, and right? I think within that sort of, what do you call it, Rube Goldberg machine of ideas and character, you know, that you can kind of get why they killed Tala, but taken on its own in isolation, then it kind of sucks, but yeah.
It's just, we have Val, and you talked about Rogue One, and these characters that, like, it's all of those factors together for me, like, we've already had Val. We already had Rogue One. We already had these people of color that have died like this. We already had women who have died like this. We've already had, you know, redemption by death where people die like this. We don't get a lot of atonement stories where people are atoning and doing good things for the galaxy that are that spark of hope for other people who just get to live their lives helping others.
It's infuriating. It's infuriating, but you can learn a lot about our Western culture by... There are a lot of Western hypermasculine voices on the internet who will tell you that the reason they don't like Rose Tico is because she prevented Finn from heroically sacrificing himself.
And that's the American monomyth. That's what I'm telling you, is that there's this culture of death.
Yes.
That is pervasive in American culture. And that's what the American Monomyth book is all about. So read it if you're interested in this. And it's, you know, like the American superhero, basically, and how it really teaches you a lot about our media and a lot about Western culture.
There's some interesting conversations going on around the new Top Gun movie online, and it's funny because it kind of subverts the American monomyth, and maybe that's all I should say about it. But I think there's this idea that our cinema of the people who inspired Spielberg and De Palma and all those guys who were George's peers and influences, like they all came from this tradition of traditional Westerns and World War II movies, you know,
which all have the same sort of psychology, right?
Yeah.
We have to the best thing that you can do, or the most you know, altruistic thing that you can do is sacrifice yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
For a flag, you know,
for a flag, for patriotism, for the culture, right? It's very weird, right? Whereas in the Joseph Campbellinian monomyth, it's about living for the community, bringing the knowledge back to the community, transforming the community because you have transformed yourself. And the American monomyth stops short of helping the actual community and giving knowledge back. It kills the hero usually before that, or they leave and go off into the West or hide from society because they're too dangerous to be in society.
Yeah.
It's really powerful. And like I talked a lot about it in the Rise of Skywalker with Rise of Skywalker kind of deep dive that I did with Ty. Ty has like done so much research, way more research than me on it, but it stands out when you start to notice it. And yeah, I'm totally going to see Top Gun now. And I want to say, like, death in general is one of the most powerful storytelling elements that we have. It reminds us of our own mortality. It reminds us, and it helps us understand loss. And when death is used in general, it doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. Like Pixar's Up.
Sure.
Yeah. How, you know, loss of Ellie, The Lion King, loss of Mufasa. Like, death in general is not necessarily bad. It just, when you have character sacrifice like this, it leans into sort of this realism and this grittiness. The you know, thermal detonator destruction of Tala leans into kind of trying to pull us into realism. And a lot of people psychologically want more of the fantasy and the good wins over bad. you know, and so there's a lot of like, I can understand why people would like see it both ways.
Yeah.
One way or the other, right? Yeah.
There's, you know, I've known a lot of people who went off to boot camp and were basically indoctrinated into the military. And, you know, they come back basically talking about human beings in binary terms of us and them, you know, the other, you know, using weird sort of slurs to talk about the, you know, people who are not Americans, basically. You know, I remember being 4, 5, 6 years old, going to like public grade schools and stuff. And the way that they teach you to say the Pledge of Allegiance every morning before school, you know, they want you to know what the flag means. And there's this idea that is drilled into your head from the time that you can understand abstract concepts, like this idea of all gave some gave all. And you see that on like church signs around America all the time. This idea that
what does that mean?
It means
I've never heard of this. It
means that the highest honor that American man or service person or the most heroic thing that you can do as an American who buys into the military propaganda, is that you give your life in military service. Like you did it. Congrats. You sacrificed yourself overseas in a military campaign in some foreign country. Like that's the highest honor that you can achieve. And, you know, I saw that on a church sign on the town square 2 days ago, probably. You know, it's been around as long as I've been alive, 30 years, probably for 100 years or more, you know, that idea that, yeah, that's the American monomyth right there, you know?
Yeah. And I think it's really telling that the only person that sacrifices themselves in the original trilogy is Obi-Wan Kenobi. And he immediately gets rewarded by going into the Force and living on.
Yeah, true. Yeah. Like Yoda dies of old age and yeah, most other people it's sort of like fighting, but yeah, with him, it's... I mean,
like kind of technically Anakin at the end, but also old. Like, you know, I mean, you get rewarded by going into the Force. Like you still kind of live on like that's, and you're still able to guide the community. I don't know. Like it just feels like, especially with the introduction of Rogue One into the universe, it really opened up we now die for this.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Which was not always a given. Like the original version of the script, I think they lived and got married at the end. Right. So it's, you know, there's people making these decisions. You know, somebody in an interview said that. I don't know if it was like Gilroy or who said that, but supposedly like there was a version where Jyn and Cassian like literally ran off and got married at a wedding chapel.
The actor who plays Baze on the celebration stage, he die, we all die. Yeah. Anyway, so I just like, it was a complex scene for me because I got what it was trying to do. Right. And that's the weird thing about my brain. Sometimes I can see both paths and I can be like, aha, kind of like being able to see magic eyes and like also, or like you can switch your brain between the gold dress and the blue dress.
Yeah.
You know, like, are you one of those people? I can do that. Right. And so I can kind of see both ways. And it did sit weird with me. And if it sat weird with you, you're not wrong. You're valid. Right. We don't want this, I think, for all of our women cool characters to be killed in this way. All of our sad former people who made mistakes to be killed in the or have to commit suicide to redeem themselves. Like rant over. I'll just time box that one. That was a really long conversation, but I think an important one. So we get next the third flashback, and Anakin has disarmed Obi-Wan and says, "Admit you are beaten." Right. And this ties to the whole concept of what does winning look like for you? Right. And gives Obi-Wan, because we flashed to Obi-Wan's face, the idea that, you know, Anakin Skywalker has been trying to prove himself for like 20 years, 30 years, like forever.
Yeah.
To Obi-Wan Kenobi. And without his weapon, he is more powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, simply,
oh my God.
Simply by not agreeing to fight, basically.
Yeah. He is more powerful. Okay, so this is a couple of things. So amazingly cool from a Force perspective, from a Jedi perspective. This is huge, but it's also very A New Hope. It's also Yoda. Oh, we put you a weapon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's A New Hope in like, the idea that he really wasn't trying to fight him. He was trying to delay him.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to distract him so that the kids could get away.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, oh, this is huge. From a Force perspective, there's this idea that a lightsaber makes a Jedi, not a Jedi just uses a lightsaber. Right? Are you a Jedi without a lightsaber? It's even like, you've got a lightsaber. You're a Jedi? Like, without your lightsaber, are you still a Jedi? And yeah, you are. Without your lightsaber, the Force is still your ally. Without a lightsaber, maybe you're more powerful. I was obsessed with this concept of a Jedi entering into a battle with like a thin reed or something, like something that like Luke Skywalker holds, and smacks Rey with.
Yeah.
In The Last Jedi. I was obsessed with the idea like that he enters into even a lightsaber battle with a dark side user and wins against them because the Force is his ally and it literally won't allow him to lose or her to lose.
Yeah.
Or them to lose, right? Like I was obsessed with that idea for a really long time because it's not the lightsaber that allows you to win.
Yeah.
Or to get what you need out of this situation, right? Remember the way of water. You're flowing with the Force. You're not. The weapon is the heart, is the high ground, is the is the beating against the rock. Right?
Yeah.
Cool stuff.
I'm thinking about how Luke, Yoda says your weapons, you will not need them. And then Luke grabs his lightsaber and snaps it on around his waist anyway. Yeah. And in this episode, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think Vader ignites his own lightsaber in this episode. He takes not. Reva's and kind of plays with Reva's sabers like toys, but he mostly uses the Force to just stop her and kind of hold her back. And I thought that was meaningful. I kept waiting for him to like grab his lightsaber off his belt and he didn't. And so even Vader kind of embodied the stuff that you're talking about with Obi-Wan. So that was kind of fun.
Yeah. Like he didn't need to. Anakin did learn the lesson from Obi-Wan, but maybe not well enough.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Right. Like he understood he doesn't actually need, he didn't need anything super powerful to beat Reva. Right. Shout out to this tactical surrender that Obi-Wan Kenobi does. And the Reylo fic by the same name, Tactical Surrender by Destiny's fic. She's amazing. She's a really good friend of mine. And a bunch of Reylos have been giggling on Twitter since this episode.
Oh, nice. Like there's going to be some Ben Kenobi Reva action going on. On AO3 now.
I mean, I don't know.
Probably already is, but who knows?
I could Google it after. But no, it's a really great fic. And so, you're not bringing me to him. I'm bringing him to you was such a good line.
Good line. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. And he ends up like using, this is, there's alternatives to fighting, right? Which is his A New Hope line to Han Solo. All he sees is me. Like he's gonna distract him so that Reva has a chance to do what he feels like she wants to do. He's not gonna stand in her way. This felt weird, I think, to some people. I didn't personally have a problem with it because Obi-Wan Kenobi is very much like, you have to make your own decisions. I'm not going to tell anybody what to do anymore. That's not my, that was past me. I'm not going to tell you that you can't go and try and kill Darth Vader, because even if I told you not to, you wouldn't come with me, right? Join me. He had a little bit of that moment, right? He really wanted her to join him and give this up. And, but but she's going to make her own decisions.
Yeah. She sort of fulfills that, angry adolescent archetype that Kylo and Anakin, basically fulfill in the other eras. And so the idea of like when authority says, do A, they're going to do, B or Z instead. So,
yeah, exactly. And so we get the fourth flashback. The fight, again, the moves, the moves are they reminded me a lot of the Mustafar fight. Like I said before, especially this part. And Obi-Wan loses his weapon finally. And he has some advice for his Padawan. Your need for victory, it blinds you. And this is, again, like the dark side is greed, right? You want the thrill. You want the feeling that winning gives you. Yeah. And this is, if you've ever played a serious board gamer in a game, like a board game that like makes it everybody else's problem if they lose a board game.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? Or like a video game, right? Like those are people that have put the concept of winning over every other piece of joy that you could get from experiencing the world around you.
Yeah. Their self-worth is tied to their ability to get first place more than everybody else. Yeah. They want to be alpha,
Yeah. And this is all tied to the construct and how firm and rigid your ego is, like your aspect and your own personal vision of who you are and what you've built around yourself. Anakin is entirely not confident in himself, even though he is one of the most powerful creations the Force has ever made.
Yeah.
He doesn't believe it. He doesn't believe he's worthy of anything.
Yeah, he's not somebody who lives and acts as though his father was God or the Force, or he doesn't behave like a chosen one. He behaves like, an orphan with a chip on his shoulder, essentially. And there's this idea too that with Yoda has the do or do not, there is no try, and Anakin.
That's very, very wu-wei of him.
Anakin tries so hard,
Again, we get that tie back to actionless action, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And like when Luke fails as a young man to pull up the X-wing, he's struggling and he's trying so hard, and then post death, as a ghost, it's effortless because he's he is part of the Force and nothing more.
Yeah.
He's just.
And this is all, the point of, what the monomyth is telling us, right? We're all seeking wholeness. We're trying to unify with the different aspects that are broken within ourselves or the ego that constrains us, right? As we get closer to wholeness and unification, our assumptions about ourselves and our assumptions about the world we live in break down. And we need to go through an ego death, a thing that separates us from our former version of ourselves, to more wholly unify our conscious self, everything that makes up what we are aware of. Because the thing that's preventing us from connecting with our unconscious self is our ego, is the thing that we have built walls up around ourselves to maintain. And so Anakin's ego and who he thinks he is, which is the ultimate protector of the galaxy, is wholly consistently there as Vader. He doesn't think he has ever done anything wrong because who he views himself to be, and this is like the big cognitive dissonance of Anakin Skywalker as Vader, is that he still views that the Republic is the moral authority of the galaxy. And so he is still maintaining that, even with all of the bad things that he has done. He's never questioned that wall that he built in his ego. even though it's led him to all of this disaster, right?
Yeah.
And that's really, really important in this flashback because we build our construct of what is good and what is winning and what is important. And we form our ego from those things. And if we only go by those things and are not flexible, we maybe are missing things that we actually need that are unsettled deep within our unconscious. We're not listening to it. The myth, the stories, the symbols that we see and we resonate with are telling us what we're missing. That makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, there's, people that find all kinds of different success, and they find that it, it doesn't fulfill them, like, Twitter engagement or, professional success.
Fake internet points. Yeah.
Like
I have a ton of upvotes on Reddit. Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
And then, at the end of the day, they quote unquote win the game. They succeed at the game of life or capitalism or whatever. And they're like, oh, I still feel kind of hollow,
Yeah.
Yeah. There's that idea of looking inward rather than, at flags and chessboards and all that stuff.
Because through the internal, healing the internal is how we heal the community. Because the inside and the outside are paired. We're all one in the Force. It's all the same thing, right? It's cool. But then we immediately cut to Leia and Lola and her finding Lola and removing the restraining bolt that has turned her into an agent of evil. Lola, I mean, right? Removes the Palpatine evil eyes, right? And of course, this is the most brilliant droid-based dark side redemption metaphor, right? So this hope that is in Leia will be eventually given to Luke, which will eventually heal Anakin.
Yeah.
And take him out of the destructive darkness that he is in, trapped within this darkness. And what does this also do? Well, it heals Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
And opens up a path, a gateway, a threshold to where he needs to be next.
Yeah. And in terms of the action on more of a surface level kind of poetic thing, it looks and feels a lot like Rey healing Kylo's wound on Kijimi. What is it? No. One of those planets.
The one
Kef
moon.
Yeah.
Kefir.
There we go. One of those K places.
Wow, you remembered the name of that planet.
Sorry.
The Water Endor moon.
Yeah.
I guess. The water moon of Endor. And so this is again where his path opens, Obi-Wan's path. This has all been a metaphor for him letting things go, his past, knowing that he can't kill Anakin, right? That's really important.
Yeah.
Vader approaches, he's entering into the tunnel, they're escaping. He grabs the ship like Kylo in The Rise of Skywalker on Kijimi. Not Kijimi, the other one. I don't know. The sandy planet, the one that kind of looked
Pasana.
like
Pasana. There we go. Yeah, sorry.
Kylo how Vader grabs the ship like Kylo grabs the ship on Pasana. That was cool. But it was a fake transport, and so he killed the wrong ship like Luke Skywalker and Kylo in The Last Jedi. There's so many echoes of The Last Jedi in this freaking episode. The caves, the escape, the holding him off, the pretending to be one thing that you're not. Like, so good.
Oh, so you're comparing it to Kylo shoving the lightsaber into his chest and then it's not
being fake. Yeah,
and also the idea that Chewie was on another transport.
Chewie was on another Chewie was not on that transport.
And then I'm sure there's other stuff in the original trilogy where there's fake outs with ships and stuff, but I enjoyed that.
They don't have to kill characters.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
If it's your favorite furry Wookiee. And then we get into flashback 5. Your need to prove yourself is your undoing. And this is just like, the salt in the wound in Vader's own mind, remembering that he was foiled kind of by being tricked.
Mm-hmm.
And this is directly like he ends up getting tricked again in A New Hope because like Anakin is like in this depressive dark side trap where he is just ruminating and he can't grow. He can't transform. He can't change. Literally, he is stuck in the darkness metaphorically.
Mm-hmm.
And Obi-Wan flies off to the next part of his journey.
Mm-hmm.
He is able to escape something, an area that Vader is stuck in. I think we talked about this earlier on in one of the episodes where I said Vader and Obi-Wan are at their lowest points, and Obi-Wan will leave that and Anakin can't.
Gotcha.
He's stuck where he is.
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan leaves. Like that's metaphorically.
The same thing happens again and again. Yeah.
Yeah. Obi-Wan is moving on in his journey through a threshold, and Vader is stuck at that threshold.
There's also this thing that happens across, especially like the Disney era Marvel comics, with Darth Vader, like the Charles Soule comics and the Greg Pak comics, and probably pretty similarly the Kieran Gillen ones, but it's been a long time since I read those. But this idea that when Vader and Palpatine are in a room together, and maybe there's some stormtroopers there, some other people there, there's the idea that he is Darth Vader, right hand of the Emperor, ultimate evil badass. It's almost a performance, and their relationship is a performance. And when they are in two different places, Palpatine takes the mask off, and Vader takes the mask off, in terms of Palpatine openly mocks and belittles and threatens Vader, and tries to assert his, basically domination of him. And then on the other hand, you have Vader, when he's away from Palpatine, he's kind of like Anakin Skywalker doing Anakin Skywalker business, like tracking down his wife's tomb and trying to resurrect her, like
hanging out with her handmaidens,
or like investigating Obi-Wan's house, like just sort of like, the spirit sort of wandering the spirit realm, like picking apart the pieces of his life that he threw away,
like he's slowly working through his ego death. Like he needs to kill what he's built, and he's processing that. And I refer to him as like a walking coffin. Like he is this dead boy at the lowest part of his journey, and he can't seem to get out of it. And then, we have Reva attempting to murder him, right? And literally she is standing behind him like a shadow.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? So like symbolically, she is his shadow.
Yes.
She was created by him. Her name is like Revenge Reva, right? Like,
oh yeah.
The shadows are there and they will attack you, but they cannot kill you.
Yeah.
You also can't kill them.
Yeah.
Right? They exist, right? These things, they need to be resolved in some way. You need to face them and truthfully understand what they're trying to tell you. And through their fight, like he knows who she is. But it's not resolved.
Yeah.
Right? He doesn't understand truthfully what she's trying to say. He just knows that she was a youngling in the temple that he attacked, right?
Yeah.
So still stuff to resolve there.
Yeah. She's like the physical manifestation of the pain that he caused in order to try to stop his own pain. He in acting selfishly, he just sort of left a trail of literal dead bodies, but also pain and fear and hate and anger and all that stuff. So
yeah, and she's the thing that he created come back, right?
Yeah.
But also, like, from a projection shadow perspective, she is him, right? She's the thing that he hated to kill about the Jedi Temple. Was the Jedi Temple that bad? No. Did he literally, like, that was his entire life in addition to Padme? Right? So this is actually a really important thing that he's dealing with her.
Yeah.
Grand Inquisitor enters after the defeat of her, right? She's weaponless and stabbed, or not stabbed, but weaponless. Or does he stab her first? I think he stabs her first. And she's laying on the ground all in pain.
Yeah, I think her sort of vision's a little blurred for a second. We're getting like her viewpoint. Yeah.
Yeah, and the Grand Inquisitor's like, I'm back, bitches. You couldn't kill me.
Yeah, he's like that Emma Roberts meme, like, surprise, bitch.
Yeah, and he says revenge is powerful. It's a powerful motivator. And it's like, oh, Reva's hearing that. And so Reva is going to go after Vader again. Powerful motivator, etc. Yeah. And he's like, this is again, like, the Grand Inquisitor reminds her of how lowly she is and how out of place she is, etc. And that's exactly like Anakin, right? He's out of place. He's out of place even as Vader, right? It's all pretense, right?
Yeah.
So hearing that out loud in front of Vader was really interesting. And they leave frustrated because they have no way to potentially track the ship until they realize the hyperdrive is dead.
Yeah.
Which, sort of reminds me of TLJ again. Are we going to get a slow chase ship?
Yet another TLJ
thing. I don't know yet. But Reva finds the message, and we get the cut to Kenobi, who's like, "Oh, something's wrong. I feel the Force." And this is really important because he has left the atoning part with Anakin, right? He's left Anakin behind, the I want to kill Anakin that he killed him on. He tried to kill him on Mustafar. He no longer wants to kill him. He's come to that resolution, and he has now reached his apotheosis because he is more connected with the universe, and he can heal. He can feel things. He has power. He has power he's never realized before. He can feel the Force. Something is wrong. He's got his groove back, as depressed as he is.
Now
we cut to the Luke scene, right?
Oh, right. Lying
he's
in
the
bed.
homestead, and that's the classic. He doesn't know what's coming to him for him.
Get those red lights again. Red lights all around the homestead. Now, there's a moment where, like, Reva is unconscious and stuff, and we don't actually see everything. Granted, there was like a big firefight, and there was like a big grenade, thermal detonator explosion. Do we think that Vader picked up Obi-Wan's little communicator and smashed it after maybe seeing that message? Is that what we think?
No, it got stepped on.
It got stepped
on. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think Vader knows to go to Tatooine.
Okay, so Reva is going to maybe lead everybody there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know what's going to happen. I'm still hoping for a Force fight where we get to see Anakin with his long flowing hair from Revenge of the Sith.
It would be very cool.
I want a replay of the Battle of Heroes on Mustafar, but like in the Force.
Yeah.
Make it weird. Make it Forcey.
Yeah.
Thank you. Is my ask. Reva has the stuff that she's got to resolve. I think that the episode's going to be like 90 minutes based on timing, because it was supposed to be 5 hours and 20 minutes for the total run time of the whole show.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yeah, that's what my assumption was too, and I definitely hope so. That'd be
basically
fun.
like a movie.
Yeah,
that we're getting.
Yeah.
So do you have any final thoughts on this episode before we kind of talk about the finale and what we'll need to see?
Gosh, I guess not. I think I rambled a lot, but I really, really loved all the parallels. This was like jam packed with so much sort of cross the era goodness with Leia and Obi-Wan, and all the Skywalkers, and it reinforced that whole thing of like Obi-Wan and Rey having a lot of similarities, how they function within the story. Like it kept that up big time. And yeah, I'm gonna miss Tala, and I hope that we see more of her in something somehow. She was great.
Yeah, I thought she would have been really cool to have in Andor. As like
yeah, she would have been perfect for that.
Yeah, these things happen.
Yeah,
I really don't think she survived that thermal detonator.
It's not looking like it. No.
Yeah. Final thoughts. Okay, so when I spoke with Mike Cohen and we did the reaction after we watched it in theaters, in the theater with the cast and crew, he said, great Star Wars or good Star Wars, Star Wars like this that makes the rest of Star Wars better is great Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Because it makes you look at these different aspects. It feels like poetry.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's poetry. It rhymes, the George Lucas famous line, but it feels sort of like the Force. It feels all interconnected with the larger message and resonates like that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's what it was for me this episode.
Yeah.
Additionally, it makes me feel like reevaluating A New Hope that the entire time Obi-Wan Kenobi is trolling his younger brother,
mm-hmm.
making fun of his like pretend made up title.
Yeah.
And like calling him like okay, like his LARP name or something like that. Like just like trolling on him, like only a master of evil, Darth.
Yeah.
Like it makes it feel like he's literally razzing on him to get him distracted. Like it's all a distraction technique.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me reevaluate all of that, which is also fun. Like that's fun to be like, I get this new contextualization that, Obi-Wan understands what he's doing so much. He's not just trying to fight. He's off to, to protect. And that's so cool. And it gives it that like fun. I don't know. It's fun. It's a little fun, I think.
Yeah. It gives new weight to like, before you called yourself Kylo Ren and like your mask, you won't need it, like take off your mask. And I think back to like seeing The Phantom Menace as a kid and just like being blown away by like, okay, this kid who looks and acts like me or whatever, this 10-year-old kid is Darth Vader. Like I'm supposed to believe this is Darth Vader. And I feel like the Obi-Wan series, maybe a little less so this episode, but especially like the last episode and the first episode, it's really given me a new appreciation for Leia, seeing her as like a, young daddy's girl kind of thing, with just, with her little droid that apparently was inspired by a picture of Carrie Fisher as a little girl with her bird, Benny.
Yeah.
Which, God, the bird's name was Benny. Are you kidding me? Like, it's insane. But, it's so good. Makes me love Leia more. And,
it makes me love Leia more. It makes me appreciate everything we got from Carrie Fisher even more.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it just makes Star Wars better. And that's all, like, make Star Wars better all the time. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Right. As far as the finale and where we're heading to, we're heading into another confrontation. This was like kind of their second confrontation.
Yeah.
They were together, but they weren't together.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, like it was like cat and mouse a little bit in this episode.
Mm-hmm.
But we're going to get a final confrontation between Darth Vader and Obi-Wan Kenobi. We've talked a lot about what we think we need to get out of that. But in so many ways, it's going to be, I believe there's going to be an offer of, Obi-Wan reaching out to Anakin. We might get the name drop of Padme.
Yeah.
Padme always thought there was good still in you, and so do I.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that, right?
Yeah.
And that rings true with the Obi-Wan once thought as you did, Luke.
Yeah.
That we get in Return of the Jedi. And so there's going to be an offer of compassion. Obi-Wan or Vader's going to turn him down some reason. I hope it's a really cool thing that I'm not expecting.
Yeah.
Really hope it, something really cool that's like he needs to still be in there. I really hope Reva doesn't end up dying, and I hope that she takes on kind of the role that Tala did by helping others.
Yeah. I think that would be really powerful.
Yeah.
I think she's sort of ripe to become like the new fan favorite, like the Darth Maul type of character that, started off as like just, a little piece
more
of the puzzle.
More like anti-hero.
Yeah.
Type, yeah.
Darth Maul, Boba Fett, where it's like this character that seemingly, just like one small part of the story becomes like this, the next generation of like, we want all the stories about her. I would love to see that happen. And also, just the idea of the drama possibilities of, the radical forgiveness and compassion of, you essentially killed Padme and she still loved you anyway. That idea of like, on her deathbed.
It is radical.
On her deathbed, after the republic that she spent her life serving, you burned it to the ground for her and she still loved you. Like, there's something really crazy and operatic about that. And I think there's a lot of
very
potential
Star
there.
Wars.
Yes.
You're my crazy murder father, and I forgive you and I love you.
Yeah.
It's very Star Wars, and like we need something powerful like that where Obi-Wan realizes he can't kill Anakin, and it's not too far to say I love you, Anakin.
Yeah.
Right. And that I think that would be really powerful to come from like Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. I love you.
Yeah, or even just
man to man,
Yeah, even if it's not like that. I mean, he said it.
Words, but he said it. I loved you, Anakin.
Yeah,
and it would be a repeat, but it is present. I love you, Anakin.
Yeah, that would be powerful. Yeah,
and really important, I think, for a lot of men to hear, right? And this is all like. Is something I'm going to continuously talk about in the future because it's really affected me. And I think that it really can help a lot of people, which is bell hooks and the will to change and the sort of understanding that the dominator culture that, needs violence to perpetuate itself and to continue to dominate is the opposite of that is allowing people to love and become whole people who can be interconnected with their emotions. And so far, because Obi-Wan has been cut off from the Force, he's been cut off from his emotions, he's been cut off from being whole as a complete individual. He's finally gone through the gateway to understand where he is in relation to the universe, in his importance and where he is, and that he cannot kill Anakin. And so he still loves Anakin. And I want to hear him say, I love you, Anakin.
Yeah. we very much live in a culture that loves the death penalty, loves the idea that once Darth Vader puts on a helmet and calls himself Darth Vader, he's Darth Vader forever. And I think it'd be really radical and beautiful if, Obi-Wan said something to the effect of, you're still Anakin under there. That idea too.
Of that, yeah.
The idea that you can come back.
We've had the breadcrumbs of that, right?
Certainly.
Because he called him Anakin. You mean Anakin?
You mean Anakin?
Too. Yeah. So it's there. Like I think you and I like are on the same page as far as like what we think we need out of this, and I hope we get it because it would be anti-patriarchal, anti-dominator culture, anti-violence. Love and compassion winning over things, especially for the love and compassion that we know Ben still has in him, right? He didn't want to ever face Anakin, but he was willing to face Anakin. He was willing to face Maul to protect those around him. And with that, I think we're done this episode and excited for the finale.
Very excited.
All right. My good friend Alex, where can people find you if they're looking for you online? I'm
at Alex J. Kane, Kane, on Twitter. And I wrote a book about the making of Knights of the Old Republic a few years back, which is by Boss Fight Books.
Yeah. And you can still find it out there. So, and it's great.
Yep.
It's how we met. I will never regret. Right. I will never regret saying, "Hey, do you want to talk about this?"
Yes. Yeah.
It's how we met, and we've been friends ever since. So
yes,
definitely read the book. You'll create a friend in Alex if you read the book.
It's true. I'm predisposed to like people who say nice things about the book. Yeah, it's true. It's true.
All right, we will see you back next time, and I'm looking forward to the finale. Cheers. Thank you for listening to What the Force. I'm Marie-Claire Gould, your host. Our music is provided by Christy Carew for What the Force. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/whattheforce. We would like to thank all our patrons, especially those who love and are obsessed with What the Force. Cheryl, Melody, Night Huntress, In Wild Space, Felicia, How Rude, Anna Perez, Neil, Joe Allen D, Christian Luca, Josh Johnson, Scott C, and Susan. Make sure to like and subscribe on YouTube or leave a 5-star review on iTunes or other pod apps. It helps people find the show. Check out our other channel on YouTube, What the Fiction. You can connect with us on Twitter at WT Force Show, What the Force Podcast on Facebook, and our website, whattheforce.ca. We also have a Discord. Links are in the liner notes. Feel free to reach out and start a conversation. Cheers.